Okay, so I've got this app. It's pretty basic. And on desktop, it has, actually, let me get, okay. On desktop, it's pretty basic. It's got a nav bar. It's got a section for the page and a layout. And then I've got another route here. I was building this to use the Vercel Blob API to send links to Slack, which is kind of fun. But what's interesting here is when I go to mobile viewports, you no longer have a top nav, and instead you have this bottom nav. And what the effect I'm trying to build is that it feels like a native application when you are using this and you install it to your device. This is, I would say that the definition of a progressive web app depends on who you ask. So I feel like when I ask some developers about it, they think in terms of sending push notifications, and others think in terms of offline support. Others think installability of the application, whether I want to put it on my desktop or whether I want to put it on my device on mobile. For me, the big one was always notifications. So that's one of the things I want to show off today, and then also show what this looks like actually installed to the device. So let's see, where do I want to begin? A lot of the stuff in this project, let me actually make this a little bit bigger. A lot of the stuff in this project is not necessary to build a minimum viable progressive web application. So let me start with the necessary bits, and then we can talk about like Shad CN UI and some of the other niceties that I've added in to do with the styling. We're going to start with this PWA file, and we're just going to work our way through this file because I think this explains a lot, and we're going to start with push notifications. So when I first initially looked into this, I was trying to use the web notifications API, and it seems pretty promising. I thought this was going to be the silver bullet that I wanted to send, notifications like this. And it worked pretty well for Chrome and for Safari on desktop, but it did not work well for storing your subscription, whether you can get notifications or you cannot get notifications. Oh, sorry, I was just checking on the chat. I don't know why my chat is not showing up on the screen. Let me know how it's looking for y'all. I don't see a chat on the screen. Let me see if it works. Is it working, chat? Just checking in. Okay. Maybe no chat. Well, okay. We'll keep going. And I can try to figure out the chat some other time. So I was trying to get the notifications API figured out. Turns out it didn't work for Safari iOS. But what I did find is the web push API. So that's what I want to talk a little bit more about here. So what this component does, actually I'm going to start down here at the bottom, is if I'm subscribed to push notifications, I want to be able to send a notification. Otherwise, I want a button to subscribe. So if I subscribe to push, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use this web push notification API, and I can actually register my client here using this public private key that I'm going to show in a second. I can register the subscription, I can set the subscription, and call a server action to subscribe the user. And this is interesting because I think in a lot of the PWA examples I had seen that were trying to do notifications, to get the notifications working right, somebody said in chat they can't hear me. It looks like audio's going. Let me know if that's not working. Okay, I can hear everything. Okay, it sounds like everyone else is hearing things fine. So for this subscription, most of the examples I had seen and what I had looked into previously required needing to have a separate like Express API or some backend API for handling the server part of your notifications. But it's pretty nice that you can just call a server action and make this work. So this will subscribe to the push, unsubscribe, pretty much the same thing except the opposite. And then we're setting it here into our local React state because we can do that to register our service worker. So we call this function register service worker. It goes to our service worker JS file, which is in my public directory. I'll show that in a second. I'm going to explicitly not cache this because I want to push updates to it. And if you want to have more granular permissioning, you could. For this app, I'm just limiting it to the index route. And then I can set the subscriptions. So let me go into what this Vapid API key looks like. So I actually had not heard of this before, but these Vapid standard or this Vapid format for notifications, I'm able to use this library called Web Push, which really simplifies working with the Web Push API. And I can call generate Vapid keys, and that allows me to paste these values in my .env file. So then when I have that set up inside of my server actions, I can use that same Web Push API. I can set the details, so the email that you would want to have associated with your notifications, the public and private keys, and then this is where you would likely store your subscription to a persistent database. So you would put it into Postgres or SQL or whatever your database of choice is. I see somebody mentioning in the chat, how long have I been using neovim? I've literally just started. So you're going to watch me struggle here because I'm still figuring out. I'm still figuring it out. I don't really have it perfectly figured out yet, but I'm trying. It's fun. It's fun for a change. So subscribing here, it's really not doing anything. It's just updating the local reference. But ideally, and what I'll probably do next in this demo app is hook it up to a database so you can store the subscription. The reason why you'd want to store the subscription is outside of just this one session where the value is stored here in this variable, you're going to need to retrieve it from the database. So when you go to send the notification, you're going to look it up by the user or by some other information to retrieve the subscription. But since we're storing it to a variable here, it just makes it easy to demo. You get that back, and then what the Web Push library allows you to do is call send notification, pass in the subscription, and then forward along whatever information you want to say. So test notification, a body of whatever I pass along, and then the icon that I want. So like, honestly, not that much code to actually hook that up from your client to your server. When you call this send notification and it's going to your service worker, let's talk about that next. So underneath my public folder, I have this service worker file, public/serviceworker.js. And this is just a little bit of JavaScript to listen for those push events, as well as listen for if somebody clicked on the notifications. So what I'm doing is taking in that event, the body, so the message, the icon. You can put whatever custom icons you wanted in here. You can make it vibrate if you want, which is kind of fun. I tested that out. It was working good. The date when it was sent, and so on and so forth. And then you can show a notification. And then you can also customize when you click on that notification, what website you go to as well. So yeah, the neovim journey is going well so far. I'm not using tmux. This is just a split pane inside of my terminal, but yeah, it's going pretty well. I like it so far. We're gonna see how it goes. So I think that's pretty much everything here in terms of actually sending a push notification. Let me go back to the rest of this file. So we talked through this push notification manager component, but then down here a little bit lower, I also have this component, which I'm going to call install prompt. Just for some more context, basically all this file is doing is just rendering these two different components. So install prompt, did you see that? GD, go to definition. Look at those Vim skills. I know you're impressed. So good. So buttery. I mean, it's the same thing as command clicking in VS Code, but now I feel like a giga brain. So install prompt. So really all this is trying to do is that, and this was a big today I learned for me, but there is an API that allows you to pop the dialog in the browser to say install the app. So like it shows up like right here or right over here. There's a plus, and you can prompt the browser to say, hey, just so you know, you can install this app. Well, after doing a bunch of digging in this, it sounds like it's very flaky if you do that on page load, because the browsers are trying to make it such that you interact with the page before you just like spam a notification to install the app. So my recommendation here actually is just to not try to game that system at all. I saw some really hacky stuff to do it. Instead, I recommend just giving the user really clear instructions on what it means to install the app, because there isn't really a good way of doing that on iOS Safari anyway, which you're probably trying to support iOS Safari. So all this component is doing is basically checking whether you're on iPad, iPhone, iPod, and if so, it's giving you explicit instructions on, hey, here's how you install it on iOS. You're going to need to tap the share button and click on add to home screen, which I wish there was a better way than this. Maybe there's a better way that I don't know about, but I feel like this is the best way of doing it for now. I'm not sure. Let me check the chat. Yeah, the theme is Tokyo Night. Yep. Service worker is the bit that runs while your phone is locked. Yeah, the thing with this setup that's interesting with the service worker is it can listen for those notification push events, and even if you want to send notifications while the application is not active, you pretty much have to use the push API. The notifications API does not work. So you have to save the subscription state to the database, and then you can call sending notifications based on that subscription state. So yeah, this component just is a nice little install prompt. Nothing more than that. And that's like the basis of installability, notifications, and the service worker. So I'll go back to the service worker, just talk about it one more time. It's pretty simple. There's not a ton of code in this file, but this is really all you need to do the basics of pushing a notification and sending it to the device, and then doing handling the click event. So let's try to actually do this. I want to show a demo of how it works, but I think I recently changed this. And I'm going to need to add this in. Let's do it in here. So let's do PWA. And I still need to configure my setup to work better, because I don't know why it's putting parens there. Like, I should just close the tag when I select the item, but I'll figure that out. I'll get that figured out. I also did, maybe I'll need to put my keys on the screen, but I remap some stuff to make it easier to save and then auto format on save. So let's try this out. Granted, this is not the most beautiful styles you've ever seen in the world, but I'm not subscribed to push notifications right now, so I'm going to hit subscribe. Let me just get rid of that. Maybe. Oh. Let me go back to PWA. Let me go to here. Push notifications, subscription, button. You are not subscribed. On click. Oh, I might need to change that to... I think I recently changed this back from on click to form actions, or from form actions to on click, but it should be fine. Let me see if there's a console error here. No? Let's go check out this. By the way, Chrome DevTools has some pretty good utilities here for working with progressive web apps. You get a view. Oh, we need to talk about the manifest too. I'll come back to that. Oh, I'm in incognito. See, this is actually why the DevTools are super helpful here, because it's going to say, hey, by the way, you can't install this app because you're in incognito. So let's talk about the manifest, and then we'll come back to here. Let me open up a non-incognito window. Bring it back up into the screen. Cool. Let me reset my browser positioning here. Okay, now it works. So I click subscribe. It prompts me, hey, it wants to show notifications, block or allow. I'm going to hit allow. Okay, cool. You are subscribed. My styling here is terrible, but I'm going to say hello world, and I'm going to turn, we're going to turn this off for a sec, and we're going to say send, and we should get a notification. Yeah. So test notification, hello world. And I need to update my Mac at some point here. So that works out pretty well. Nice way of sending notifications. This works with, of course, Chrome in desktop, Safari on desktop, and then we can do a demo of mobile Safari as well. But one thing I was showing here that I didn't get a chance to talk through is this manifest file. So let me go back to here and talk about this. And I want to mention one thing, which is that you can define metadata files in the app router either programmatically through like a .ts file, or you can define them as static files. So like favicon.ico will automatically put the meta tag in my head here. So we automatically get this added to the head. We don't have to do anything. It's reading the file based on the metadata, or it's putting the metadata into our application based on the file system format. So you can do static files, or you can dynamically generate these. So if, for example, I needed to pull some data from a database here, I could make some API calls here and then generate my manifest file from that. This manifest file is actually pretty important, and we need to have all of these bits to instruct the device or computer to know how to display the application when you install it. Both the icons, the colors, the URL that you should go to, the information. And what Chrome DevTools does, it's nice, is it gives you this pretty nice manifest UI that shows, okay, here's your application, here's the presentation and what it's going to look like. Here are the icons that you have. You can see the service worker that you have open. So I see that the service worker I installed, sw.js, is active, and it's activated, it's listening. I can see the registrations. So it's nice to be able to kind of debug that from here as well. So going back to our manifest, pretty much everything in here I think makes sense. It's just a bunch of strings. But then you'll notice I'm referencing these icons, and these icons I have over here in the public directory. So I'm referencing 2 different sizes of icons. Another thing to mention while I'm here is I'm going to pull up the root layout of our application. So you might not know this. There's actually 2 different exports for blocking and non-blocking metadata inside of the app router. So you can kind of think about it as what metadata needs to be sent early such that you can paint the right size of the viewport, and that would be export const viewport. So what's the minimum or maximum scale? What are the theme colors? But then there's other metadata that isn't as critical and can be streamed in later, which are things that go into the rest of the head, the title, the description, etc., and more of the different metadata things. So these are separated in 2 different APIs, and they have types. If you want to go dig in and like view all the information in here, you can. That didn't work. Let's see. I want to go to definition. There we go. I want to go to implementation. So you can view a bunch of the different examples in here as well if you want. By the way, starting to try to use Vim has helped me realize how helpful it is just to jump in and view the JS docs. So hopefully going to try to make this better as well in the future. This maximum scale one is an interesting little tidbit here as well, which is that you can, if you have a input that has a font size of 14 point or 14 pixels, it will zoom in when you click on it on iOS Safari. So you want to set this viewport tag to prevent that, or you can change the size to 16 if you want. But the thing I really wanted to mention here was the theme color bit, because this is going to allow you to set a different top bar color, like on the top of your application, depending on whether light mode or dark mode is on. And that helps give it the native application kind of look and feel. Let me actually take this, and we're going to go localhost 3000. And there's one other thing I want to mention here. So let me toggle. So you can see the browser color is updating. Also, the application style is updating when I'm toggling between different themes, because we're respecting the system default theme. So if I move to dark theme, it's going to update the colors here. If I move to light mode, it will update the colors. And you notice I have additional padding on the bottom as well. And that's to have a safe area for the like swipe up element on iOS Safari. So let me go back to here. I can, navigate between these. Granted, I have, this is another fun little pro tip. I don't know if it's a pro tip. Oh man, the tabs, revenge of the tabs. I think I want spaces here. Nice little Tailwind tip, but this future hover only when supported is a really nice thing to have. Basically, if I'm on mobile, there's no point in having hover styles, so just don't even include them. It's a nice little thing to have, because you can see when I'm on mobile, I won't even see these hover styles, which is kind of nice. I'm going to pause for a sec, and no, I do not want to enable dictation. Let me just check in on the chat. Did I use kickstart.neovim? Yes, I did. It was super helpful. Thank you to Tej and the neovim folks. Make them land future only hover when supported by default. Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, that feels like a good default. I'm a fan of doing that. Let me open up. Where the heck is this? Let's see if I can do with the emulator, if I can do the install to, I don't know why I just opened 2. We'll see if we can do the install to home screen. We'll just take this one because I want to show off what that looks like, and we can test see if the notifications work on the simulator. I've been testing on device, so I don't know if it will be any different in the simulated environment, but we're gonna find out. We are going to find out. While that's loading, because it's taking Tim Apple's sweet time, what other questions do you all have? What am I using to make the Next.js app into a PWA? So this is an interesting bit because I feel like a lot of the examples I've seen have kind of immediately jumped for Webpack plugins, and you don't necessarily have to do that. Like everything I'm building in this example, there's no artisanal Webpack plugins. To do a MVP, a minimum viable MV, an MV PWA. I don't know why it was so hard for me to get that right. Minimum viable progressive web application. You actually don't need to modify your Webpack config at all. Really, that comes into play, and there's a helpful library called Surwist. If you want to do offline support, offline support's, it comes with its own challenges. So you just want to be intentional about how you build that. I don't know what the heck this is. No. Okay. Localhost 3000. Is this even going to work? I haven't tried the simulator yet. Nice. Let's see. Is there... There's got to be logs in here somewhere. Window. Debug. System log? I don't know, chat. Maybe chat knows. Always allow simulator permissions. Yeah, maybe that's what messed it up. Maybe I should have gave permissions. Maybe I can redo the permissions. If not, I can always show it on my phone, even though it's not as much fun for me to hold my phone up to the display. Maybe the simulator is an epic fail. I'll try loading a different one and redo the permissions. For logs, you need to use the Safari inspector. That's true. Let me go back to somewhere in here, isn't it? I, most of the time, develop in Chrome, so I'm not really in here much, TBH. Let's try this. Is it going to ask for permissions this time? No. Okay, well. Localhost 3000. Yes. Oh, I just realized I skipped over something that I probably should have mentioned, which is how am I using localhost 3000 on HTTPS? Is that possible? Is that doable? And the answer is, I'll kind of come back to this in a second, but this is now built into Next.js, in case you didn't know. So there's this -- experimental HTTPS that you can use for your local dev server. And also to get service workers, to get PWAs to work locally, you need to use HTTPS. So this is it's not a optional step. This is a necessary step. So just wanted to mention that. Let me pull up all of this again. Okay, so React Form State has been renamed to React Action State. Please update Slack link share. Oh, did I change versions here? Actually, is that just a warning? Where did my simulator go? It's interesting. I feel like I'm surprised that that would cause an exception. You know what I mean? But we can find out. I could just... also, it's not even in the page. Like, it's on this send page. This is in a completely different, use form state is on the send page. It's not on the index route. Feels like maybe a red herring in terms of where this is coming from. Maybe. I feel like it's swallowing an error here, and I'm not able to see what it is. Well, as much as I would love to debug the intricacies of simulated devices with Safari, I really don't. I really don't want to do it. So I'm just going to chalk this one up as an L for now. And I will do the old fashioned, I will just show you it on my actual device where I tested it and it was working. With the classic, I can just hold up my phone. So let me, boom. So, focus. So, man, that bokeh is great. So one of the nice things with the top bar is up here, I'm able to get the color to match the same as the top navigation bar with that viewport line I had. And down at the bottom, then, oh, look at those nasty fingerprints. I have enough spacing so that the scroll bar, like the drag up bar, whatever the heck that's called, doesn't interfere with my navigation items, which makes it feel, pretty decent. I can navigate between the different pages here, all feeling decently mobile appy. And then, I can, let me just share this. And I have it installed in my home screen like that. So not bad. That's less glamorous than the simulator, but it does work. Let me check on the chat. It's a shame how much Apple pushes so much against PWA. Yeah, I wish it was not this difficult to make mobile web with Safari iOS easy. It feels difficult. I'm glad the Web Push API exists. I will say that it has been more difficult than I would like to get it all working, but it does work. It's doable. And I think part of it is also an education gap. I haven't talked about it very much, at least in the Next.js ecosystem. So definitely want to make this better. Can we use Next.js for Samsung application development? That's a good question. I mean, if it runs and can be installed to the home screen, probably, but I haven't tested it. Yeah, I mean, if it's Android, you can use Chrome browser. Other questions? Let me just look through the chat. I am reading the YouTube chat. It all streams into one chat. Do you need service workers, or can you just modify the manifest? Good question. The answer is you absolutely do need service workers. This was something that I thought I could get around. I was like, oh, maybe I'll use the notifications API and I won't have to use service workers. Wrong. Found that out the hard way. You have to have not only the manifest, but also the service worker. So the more you learn, the more you know. Other questions? What have I not answered for your PWA questions? Except that I'm bad with the Safari iOS emulator. I can talk more about my setup here if you're curious about my my neovim configuration. I see there's a few questions about how that's set up. Yes, it is using lazy. Yeah. I'll talk about that next. Other questions? Oh, why use form state and not use action state when which is meant to become? Yeah, so more context on that. Let me go back to here. In this file, I'm using use form state both here and here. And in React 19, this API is changing to be called use action state. The reason why it's changing is, honestly, one of the biggest things in my opinion is the addition of, you can get a pending value back on the returned object, which is super nice because previously, if you've been using some of these newer features in the Next.js app router, like useFormState, useFormStatus, you had to use useFormStatus to read the pending option. And useFormStatus had to be in a child of the form. So it was like, sometimes you had to like contort your code around a little bit to get it to be exactly what you wanted. So it's pretty nice that that is just going to be available as a property that gets returned back. I think, okay, I am using, I'm on Next 15 and I'm on the React, Next 15 RC and the React 19 RC. So, I could go in here. Let's see if I can flex my, my Vim find and replace skills. I don't know if I can remember it. It was, I think it was slash, it was either $s or %s. Use form state. Maybe it was %s. Use form state. Somebody's going to correct me in the chat. It still is. Yeah. LOL. Use action state. No? Maybe %s. Use. It was highlighting before. Yeah, this looks right? I don't know why it's not highlighting. I'm still bad. Still bad at this. Okay, now it works? Okay, I don't know what happened there. Use form state, use action state. And then apparently you can also, I think it was like CG or something if you want to step through them afterwards. Still figuring all this out, but we'll go with that. So use action state. The signature changes like the signature is the same. I can't remember if use action state comes from React DOM or React still. Let's try this. Use action state. Oh wait, docs. Where does the import come from? Looks like React and not React DOM. So that makes sense. Let me get rid of this. Okay, use action state. We update this here. I don't think we'll need to change anything else in this file. So yeah, that's the change. That was a long, strange journey for me to struggle with Vim. But like I said, we're learning. Command space, open cursor. Yeah, that's going to be my next kind of journey here. Is I wanted to actually spend some time learning Vim. I'm surprised I never have dove into it at all up until now. And then I want to see what the workflow kind of looks like for cursor and some of the newer tools here as well. But I can talk a little bit about where my setup is at right now. So for context, let me just pull up my screen here. For context, just so you understand where I'm coming from, maybe some of you will relate to this. When I started to program, I was using Notepad, and I was doing like in college, university, C, and then Python, and then Eclipse and Java, and then pretty much immediately jumped on the Sublime Text train, which was a great ride. I used Sublime Text for a really long time, and also did a little bit of C# work there, which was a strange detour in my journey. But then eventually really started to do a lot more work on the web, was still using Sublime Text, and then moved to VS Code, and I've kind of been in VS Code since then. So this whole journey and exploration into revisiting my editor, my Git setup, all of it, was just because I haven't really changed anything in like 6 years, and I just wanted to see kind of what was out there and what the state of the world looks like. So I used the neovim quick start that Tej put together. I think some others worked on, and it was super helpful for me to get set up with like a basic neovim config that had like most of the things set up in the way that I wanted. I had to still configure some things, but overall, like it's pretty good. Like having telescope for looking through files. So if I want to go to something in here, that's this like fuzzy finder overlay that's super nice. Having the neovim file tree that I can open and close is also really nice. I like the theme. The theme feels nice. I've added a couple extra plugins and little things. Nothing too like groundbreaking in here. One of the things that's pretty cool, let me do app testing page.tsx. We'll just do export default function page. Oh, I also added auto closing brackets because, yeah, of course, that's table stakes. You have to have those. So let me make this new file. And then one thing that's kind of nice is I added Avante, I think is what it's called, but it's like cursor, but in neovim. So let me actually make this bigger. More screen real estate. Actually, it might cut it off, which is what I'm trying to show here. I want to make sure that my face doesn't cut it off. So it's leader AA, which brings me into this thing, and I can ask questions like, I don't know, make this component render a list of to-dos with Tailwind and make it mobile responsive. Sure. And this gives you that same kind of workflow of, I think I can drag this, resize it. Yeah. So I can scroll through here if I want, or you can just like go directly to the code snippet. So let's say I go to here, I'm like, okay, that seems good. I'm gonna hit apply. Then over here on the right, I can say, okay, I wanna change mine or I wanna change theirs. So I hit CT, and then CT copies in the bit that they had. So then I basically just get all of this included without, really having to do much. Interestingly though, it says, oh, useState is not allowed in server components. So the model doesn't always get it right, but that's fine. We can slap a use client on here. Oh, that's not what I want. Slap a use client on here and yeah, looks fine. Let me get rid of that. So you can kind of have that cursor-like workflow built into here, which is, I haven't really explored it too much, but it's kind of interesting that it exists. And there's some cool plugins being built in the ecosystem there. So yes, I am using Vim. I'm trying. I'm still not very good at it. I feel like one of the things that has blown my mind, again, total absolute noob, but the chaining of commands is very, very interesting. Like being able to delete everything inside of a tag. So I think they're called modifiers, but like DIT, delete in tag, it just deletes everything inside of the button component. Or like, let's say I'm here and I'm like, oh, I want to rename to-do list. So I can do change in tag and I can say hello world. Like that's pretty fancy. Like there's some pretty cool stuff like that. I don't know if I'm just in like the peak Vim hype right now and maybe it'll be overrated, but it's been helpful so far. Also, one thing that I've liked so far that had been painful in the past is, I don't know about y'all, but the Tailwind LSP inside of VS Code, I feel like I always struggle with. And this feels a lot faster to me. I don't know, maybe it's a placebo, but it feels like it's working a little bit better. It's probably going to take a lot more tinkering for me to get it in the right spot where I feel like happy with it. But yeah, it's been interesting. So far, I think most of the things that I have had in VS Code, I've been able to kind of recreate. The biggest one that honestly it held me back from Zed, it held me back from Cursor, was like, I liked Zed, it didn't have the built-in Git workflow, and then I think Cursor still I think Cursor has this. So I've been trying to like revisit my priors of how I do Git, and lazy Git is interesting. I don't know if I like it as much as the built-in workflow, but you can kind of see what files you have that are dirty, that have changes, and you can go through them and look at the diffs. It's okay. I don't know if I love it yet, but it is one thing. There was another one, which is, I think it's diff view open. So there's a plugin for doing diffs that seems interesting, but again, I haven't really dug into it too deep. I don't know if this will give me all of what I want in terms of the VS Code abilities, but it's worth checking out. So I'm looking at that. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, the thing I really liked about Zed is that I liked the design. It felt really fast. Neovim also feels pretty fast, so I'm liking that right now. Also, just like splitting the panes here has been pretty easy in a way for me to just like dip in between editor and normal terminal things like devlogs and other bits here. So I don't know. Maybe I'll go back. Maybe this will be a temporary phase. Maybe I'll stick here. I'm not really sure yet. Let's see, other questions. Just looking at the chat. So yeah, this is my current setup right now, but we'll see how it evolves. We'll see how it evolves over time. How do we come from npx create next app to this PWA? Command plus C V S Z Y. I had to use a ton of hacks missed from VS Code to work with neovim. Yeah, it's a good question, like the copy pasting undoing workflow. And yes, I can read your comment, Magnus. So that was something I still feel like I'm adjusting to the muscle memory of. But like, for example, let's say I want to copy, I don't know. Let's say I want to copy this line. I can do YY and it will highlight that line and copy it to the keyboard. Or if I want to do, I think, YAT, yank around tag. I can highlight this whole tag and copy it. Something I found myself doing a lot in VS Code is like, if I go to the top of the file with GG, and then I if I shift V to go into visual mode, and then I press capital G, I can select the whole file, and then Y to copy it. So like that was a workflow that I was doing quite a bit in VS Code. It's effectively the same number of commands as doing Command A, Command C. So it's not like it was more overhead, it was just different. Still kind of figuring out that bit. There might be easier ways of doing that, but that's at least what I'm doing right now. Yeah. Avante is good so far. It's helped me with a couple little things here. I still, because of the model, I'm using Anthropic, because it doesn't have the most up-to-date information about App Router, I'm still going to V0 and like copying things. And that was where I would use this workflow a lot of like, GG, Command V, Command G, V, like copy this whole file, paste it into V0, ask some questions and come back. That's something that I've done quite a bit. That's worked pretty well. I want to go back to that question around how do you go from create next app to here, because there's like a decent amount of stuff happening inside of this repo and not all of it is necessary. So just to like quickly mention some of this stuff, pretty much the minimum viable bit is you need a manifest, which is going to go in your app directory. You technically don't even need that install prompt. You could just do this component for push notifications that we talked about earlier. I think the install prompt thing is nice. So not required, but helpful. You need a server action for your notification to talk to. So you need this to send a notification, subscribe and unsubscribe. You need a service worker to listen to the push events and handle clicking on notifications. And you need to generate your keys, public and private keys, which are used as part of the web push API. That's like the MVP thing. And with a small bonus of making sure you use experimental HTTPS to start the server on localhost 3000 on HTTPS. That's it. That's really all you need to do a PWA. And I think it had felt a lot more confusing because it was like, oh, I need to go change this. I need to go add in this Webpack configuration or go add in all these extra plugins. To me, actually, like one of the bits that's a little bit more work here is just getting things styled correctly so that you can make it look good across web and mobile. So like even this pattern of keeping the navigation here on the top, or then when I'm on here, let me make this a little bit smaller. Having this pattern, like just even doing some of those things, make it feel a lot more app-y, feel more appy, and know how to install it to the home screen. So those bits I think are important. I'm going to package all of this up and put it into a PWA starter and documentation here as well. So yeah, there's some bits there. Other questions in the chat. Do I see V0 having a public API to query against? That's a good question. Like being able to ask questions here versus having to kind of go back to the browser and come back. I think absolutely we'll have to have something like that because it's nice to stay in the editor and not have to go bop out into a million places. So yeah, I think that'd be nice. Question, is it still recommended to use SWR for data fetching? I would say it just depends on what you're trying to build. Like we just actually, give a little shout out here. We just actually recently released new documentation on data fetching that tries to be a lot more example based. So we walk through, here's how you fetch on the server with the fetch API. Here's how you fetch on the server if you're talking to a database or an ORM. Here's how you would fetch data on the client side. And while we show everyone's favorite use effect pattern, you can use SWR, you can use whatever you would like here. I think for some applications, like there are necessary data requirements that just make more sense to fetch on the client. But I think a lot of apps could probably benefit from server-side data fetching. So I usually recommend that first, especially when it's built in with the router. But it's not to say that there's never a time or place for client-side fetching. You can just do GGY capital G. All right, let's test this out. Let's see what we're working with here. GGYG. Oh, what was I doing before? I was going into visual mode and then, yeah. Oh, wow. So inefficient. Oh, what am I doing? GGYG. Boom. GGYG. Amazing. You learn something new every day. Thank you, chat. Thank you, GoStar. Other questions here. Still no date or release date for Next.js 15. So we're going to have an update. We're going to cut another RC here pretty soon with a bunch of updates. I mean, since we last shipped the RC, there's been a decent number of updates. So let's see. That was in May 23rd. So May, June. I got to count this out here. June, July, August. Yeah, it's been a few months. I know y'all are wondering kind of where we're at. We're going to have another release here to talk about some of the updates that we're making. One of the things that Jimmy tweeted about, if you don't follow Feed the Gym, go give him a follow, is that we're going to decouple the React 19 release from Next.js 15. The main reason here is that we want to make sure that it doesn't negatively impact the pages router folks, where you have to move to Next.js 15 to get onto the latest improvements with Turbo Pack and bug fixes and stability fixes. So yeah, we're going to decouple those to make the React 19 a requirement in the future, but we do want to and still think that React 19 is awesome and a good thing worth upgrading to, but it just takes time for people, especially with larger applications. For interviewing at Vercel, do y'all do leak code style interviews, or what should people prepare for? We as far as I know, don't do leak code style interviews. We try to do more practical. Granted, I haven't been involved in engineering hiring for a long time. So I can only really talk about the people that I've hired. But for general like software engineering roles, we try to do more practical coding evaluations. I feel like some of the leak code ones are especially not relevant when an AI can generate a bubble sort. Like, is that really the best use of time? Probably not. Really the goal, in my opinion, of a coding interview is to see how you think through the problem. And the solution might be, I feel like this is something that I would pull for a bubble sort for, or this feels like something that I would pull for X or Y or Z for. You don't need to know how to implement it from scratch. If you do, like, more power to you. If you ask me to write a bubble sort right now, I don't really remember how to do it. So I'd have to just paste it into V0 and then double check the code and say, oh yeah, it looks right. Actually, you know what we should do? Let's do that live. Write bubble sort in JS and make it runnable. Because one of the things that's cool with this new V0 is you can run and execute code, so you can like make sure that the output is what you expect. So yeah, let's see. Iterate over the array, maintain a variable if it's swapped. Then you have your nested loop here, swap out the elements, log it out. We have some test code. So unsorted array was this. The first pass, it does the first. Pass 2, pass 3, sorted array. Awesome, I just passed the coding interview. I just passed leak code. No, but seriously, it's more important to know, like, if you're testing for something, what I would ask here is, like, when are some examples when you might pull for a bubble sort, like in practical product or engineering problems. Like, that's the type of thing I feel like would be helpful, is when you're trying to talk through the problem set with an interviewer, is to say, okay, based on my understanding of data structures and algorithms, here are some, and my knowledge of that product space, for what you're describing, I would probably pull for this. So the example here is educational purpose. It's often used because it's very inefficient. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But this can be helpful here. So you might say, oh, okay, so not very efficient. What is a more efficient sorting algorithm? And like, just try to teach yourself and learn as you go along the way is something that I have found pretty helpful. There's quick sort, merge sort, heap sort, all sorts of good stuff. Oh, it even shows their time complexities. Wow, fancy. I haven't thought about this stuff in a while, so it's kind of funny. Are push notifications possible on iOS PWAs and Next.js yet? It's my main hang up with offering a PWA to my customers. Yes, they are. Thanks to the web push API. And I'll have docs posted an example for this soon, but just to catch you up in case you joined in later, this web push API allows you to use this in server actions and send notifications that can then be received by the service worker, just a very, very basic service worker. And this works on iOS Safari as well, once you've installed the application to your home screen. Other questions? Let's see. What about PWAs in EU? You know what? You're asking the wrong guy, because I am in the US of A, baby. No. I'm not sure if there's specific requirements around GDPR with PWAs. I mean, I'm not doing anything with customer data here. Maybe there's something around the retention of subscriptions and when you can or cannot send notifications. That part I am not sure about. I'd have to look it up. Why is let used instead of const in the first example? Boy, do I have a fun topic for you. So let's go into the history. No. It doesn't really matter. Like, I think my opinion has been swayed here a little bit recently, where there's something to be said about the brevity of just writing let, even though it's 2 characters shorter than const, where I think what people assume that const is going to do is not actually what it does. But this is kind of the holy war. So I just kind of tread lightly and say, use whatever you want to use. Other questions? And then I'm going to wrap up here in the next few minutes. Can we use FFmpeg in Next.js and production on Vercel? I did see I think it was a YC startup or a new company launched that was like a productionized FFmpeg, which is pretty cool. I think it's kind of hard to do FFmpeg in serverless. You should ask Theo, Theo GG, ping.gg. I think he's done this before. I think I'll have to find that company example and send it over. What is a PWA? A PWA is a progressive web application. Basically trying to merge some of the benefits you get of native apps with the great distribution and open platform of the web that is not locked behind Tim Apple's App Store, CC breaking up the App Store. Like being able to send push notifications, install to your home screen, and more. Other final questions. Theme is, I already forgot what it was. What's the theme? No, where's that? It's where? I don't want to type it out. You get to see all my git commands. No. I'm just going to keep going. Oh, this is when I was making my keys go faster. They were too slow. I wanted to blazingly fast go through them. It's so much better that way. Where is it at? Oh, here it is. Theme. What is the theme? I don't remember what it's called. Tokyo Night. That's the default theme in the Kickstart, and I've kind of just kept with it. So, yeah, it's fine. I don't mind it. Tokyo. Oh, the chat already knew. The chat already knew. We need to hook you up with a fuzzy finder. Control R to search history? Oh, I don't know about this one. Let me Control R to search history. Whoa. Today I learned. Wow. That's really helpful. Nice. Good. Thank you, Taymor. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover around PWAs. I'm going to get an example and docs posted here pretty soon on how to build this. Basically everything I showed today in a more minimal example plus the docs. And if you have questions or if there's anything I didn't cover on PWAs that you want to see get added to the docs, let me know. And yeah, I mean, I could talk about Vim more because I'm still learning it and struggling, but it's fun. I'm having a good time. It's a good challenge for something different after really not changing anything with my setup for like 6 years and just doing whatever I wanted to do in VS Code, which is kind of funny because the more I looked into it, I realized that I was kind of doing like very inefficient Vimy things inside of VS Code, if that makes sense. Like I would use the arrow keys and Command Shift to like quickly select stuff like this. I know it's not exactly the same. I'm like yanking this line, but like I had made my own bespoke way of navigating around the files, and I had VS Code has Command P, which makes it easy to move between things. So it was not and I might still end up here. So we'll see where things land. But I was doing a lot of the same stuff. Yeah, doing a lot of the same stuff. Okay. What keyboard do I use right now? Oh man, do I have good news for you, because I am using the absolute GOAT, the Mac keyboard. Like, I know that there's fancy mechanical keyboards, and I've tried to use them before, and maybe this is where I'll end up with Vim too. I have so much muscle memory with this keyboard, and because I work on laptop a lot, it is really hard for me to change. And my hand position is like, the way the Mac arrow keys are smaller and the command button, like I've just been working on Macs for 10 years, and it'd be really hard for me to move away from this. So I'm so ingrained and probably grumpy and stubborn that I don't really want to change it. But I do love the sound of mechanical keyboards. So it's a, tough place to be in. Tough place to be in. You can set up Telescope to check recent files. Yeah. Ooh for the Mac keyboard. Can you do widgets on iOS with a PWA? Not yet. We need to bribe Tim Apple a little bit more to get more support for that. So if you know Tim Apple, send him a message. I'm going to email him and say, Tim Apple, please, can we please have support for widgets? Actually, I don't know. Maybe there is a way to do widgets. I haven't seen one. I am not sure. Are non-PWA questions okay? Yeah, if you want to ask non-PWA questions, that's fine. I can try to answer something quickly before we wrap up here. I'm using the Lenovo key, similar to your position. Nice. I also, as is tradition, I think, with people who are learning Vim, is like I've remapped cap locks to escape, because why not? It's less movement for my finger. We'll do like one more question, and then I'm probably going to wrap up for today. They just gave a way to change the badge when getting notifications. Oh man, let's go. That's a big improvement. What font am I using on neovim? Whatever the default is. So I don't know. Let's see if it's in here. Font. Maybe it's whatever the default font in my terminal is. I don't think I have a specific one listed anywhere. So it must be my shell font. Whatever Ghost is using. Will I change my profile pic to anime because I'm using Vim? I mean, I pretty much have to at this point, right? That'd be really funny. Other questions? Yeah, excited for NextConf. I am excited for NextConf. It's going to be a fun one this year. Can I suggest a key map for Vim for find and replace? Yeah, please. If you have Vim suggestions or things you think I should learn, feel free to send me a DM on the X platform, and I will definitely check them out, because I'm still learning, still trying to figure it all out. Okay, okay, this is a long one. Put cursor on top of a word, okay, and try out this command. Wait, do I need to be in something? Oh my God, this command is wild. What does this even do? I might have to do this later. Oh, this is find and replace, I think. That is too complex for my small, smooth brain, but maybe one day I will learn to do that. But thank you for the suggestion. I will try that later. All right. I am going to wrap things up. Thank you all for hanging out. This was fun to talk through PWAs, and we're going to get some docs shipped here pretty soon with an example. And hopefully we'll see y'all building PWAs with Next.js. So until next time, peace, and I'll catch you live here soon at some point. Peace out.